joining us today. Sort of the goal with today's workshop is to get a panel of professionals to talk to you all about kind of what's going on in the world of recruiting and get some updates on the current business landscape. Kind of what's new with businesses, how they're coping with the new virtual environment, who's hiring for what, and try to give you some kind of good tips on just how to navigate all of this in general. So kind of the plan is I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves, and then I have a couple preset questions that I want to ask them. And then hopefully I'm planning just to turn it over to all of you to ask questions of our panelists. And so if you want to ask a question, feel free to type it into the chat, or you can just raise your hand, and we'll do our best to then start calling on you. And then you can ask the panelists themselves your question. We just want to have a little bit of order to it. So yeah, either raise your hand or just input the question in the chat, and then we'll take it from there. So that being said, why don't we start off and have our panelists do a brief introduction. So maybe tell us a little bit, obviously your name, the company you work for, and what your role is with that company. So let's just go alphabetical first name. We'll start with Becca.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Becca Balier. I am a senior program manager at Amazon in student programs, working specifically with MBA recruiting here. I am a Seattle U alum. I wrapped up my time there in 2008. So a while ago, I was in your shoes and excited to be with you today. I am in the Amazon office today as we just recently moved buildings. So getting to explore a new place, but I'm generally working from home and looking forward to the conversation on what this is all looking like. So thanks for having me.
Cool. Thanks, Becca. Erin.
Wonderful. So my name is Erin Julia, and I am a campus recruiter with Liberty Mutual. We are an insurance company, so I'm here to show insurance is not as boring as you think it is. So with that, much like Becca said, really excited to chat with you today and share more about the work that we're doing and kind of what the landscape looks like from all of our perspectives.
Cool, thanks, Erin. Jane.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jane Bilby. I'm the Senior Vice President of Operations at the Seattle Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce. That is always a mouthful, saying that whole spiel. Basically, the Chamber is a nonprofit business advocacy organization in the Seattle metro area. We have 2,700 businesses or nonprofits that are members, and we do policy advocacy and ensuring that Seattle is a pro-business and business-friendly environment focused on promoting equity in our region. So I'm excited. I oversee HR, facilities, finance, accounting, and payroll in my role for the Chamber and our affiliate organizations. So excited to speak from the business perspective and those perspectives, and happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Cool, thank you. Mitchell.
Hi, Mitch Bird.
Mitch,
I work for, I support Russell Investments talent acquisition for North America, Canada, and the U.S. My insurance policy is with Liberty, so there's that. Prior to Russell, I worked for Prudential Financial on the East Coast, where I was a lead recruiter. Went to a small school on the East Coast, Albers College, and then Columbia Business School afterwards. So I've spent a lot of time working with students. My primary focus at Russell is full-time. We have someone else Michael Tracy, who does the majority of our internships, but I often am working with her, and I'm happy to be here today.
Awesome, thank you, Mitch. Okay, so first one of my kind of prepared questions that I have is, so since you all have transitioned to working from home, or at least working mostly remotely, kind of how has your day-to-day changed? We'll continue with the whole alphabetical thing. Let's go with Becca.
Sure. I think that if you had asked me that question in March, I might have a different response than I do now. I am now at a place where, you know, I've been home for 6 months. I think we've all been home for at least that long, if not longer. And I think I found a new normal. My dog is really enjoying some extra time with me. I will say that that's one way that my life has changed, is I am getting a lot more walks in, and neither one of us are seeing our coworkers. Of course, Lily, my dog, came to work with me every day when I was here at Amazon. So we're both dealing with a smaller daily social circle. But all that aside, I think you know, there's quite a fluctuation in understanding how we are all going to balance our own schedules and priorities from home. I think all companies, Amazon included, understand that we have priorities in our home lives and families and partners and other folks to work with. So there was some, you know, how do we be productive and manage our schedules and our health and well-being from this new space. And candidly, it was challenging for me in March. It was like I felt like I had to roll out of bed and start work and you know, prove that I could be just as effective and all of that. And over time, I think there's been just a really nice leveling of, we're all doing our job, we're all working as hard as we can. You know, here at Amazon, things are kind of full speed ahead. So what does that look like when we're meeting remotely and spending our days on video versus in person? I think, you know, while it's certainly changed, we've better found ways to stay connected with one another and to have more intentional conversation versus the hallway run-ins and quick meetings and all of that. So it has changed a lot as far as how my days look, but has not changed much as far as what my goals are and what my expectations of each day and what my team is doing. All of that hasn't changed a ton, which is one thing I can be grateful for. I think that there's, amongst all of this change, a little bit of continuity.
Cool.
Yeah, and just kind of diving off of that to the similarities and differences. I actually was the only one on my team who sat in the Seattle office. The rest of my team was remote. So I was already used to doing a lot of virtual meetings, a lot of just a lot of connection not being in person. But I will say, from the recruiting lens, things are looking different. This time of year, I typically am traveling, have career fairs all over. I will be shaking people's hands and talking 3 feet away. And that's going to be a different scene for everybody on the panel, as well as all of you all. So that probably is the biggest change come fall. I mean, my introverted self is like loving the the work from home, which I often did before anyway, in all honesty. So it's all about finding new ways to chat and connect. And through the panel, I know we're going to continue to dive into that. But we are all, I mean, after 6 months, we're all, it is what it is. And my dog also loves it, Becca. So.
Yeah, I think for me, the work hasn't changed, but how I do it, I have to be a whole lot more intentional about. I don't, you know, those run-ins in the hallway, especially as somebody leading HR from an employee engagement perspective, is so much more difficult to gauge where folks are at. And I think I took for granted how easy it was to do a casual check-in or to collaborate. Everyone in the departments that I oversee are functional and subject matter expertise. I am not an accountant. I oversee accounting, but I rely on my department heads, and I have to remember to check in, which I think I was just so used to the run-in, and we all had an open workspace, and so we could very easily all stay on the same page. And so finding ways to collaborate that feel authentic, but also have to be a lot more scheduled and a lot more mindful of. I've got employees that have kids who are homeschooling. I have other employees who are alone and don't live with anybody and don't have a pet, and have very different schedules and very different priorities. And so it feels, I really struggled with not feeling as kind of casually collaborative. It feels a lot more forced in some ways, and I struggled with that. And it's finding a way to, how do you balance that casual, that kind of team mindset, knowing that you have the same amount of work to do and the same goals, but you're doing it so differently, and everyone's lives look so different, and their priorities and the way that, you know, somebody's not, you know, somebody might be working 9 to 5, I don't, and I have other employees who are popping on and off. So that has been really challenging. I like working from home and not commuting and being in my space, and I feel a whole lot less effective. So also helping employees and myself deal with that feeling of feeling less effective has been a big challenge, and something we've really been focusing on over the past 6 months.
And for me personally, since working with Russell, and we're headquartered in Seattle, I've always been a remote recruiter. So I actually work out of my house on the East Coast. So that hasn't been a change. The change has been now my wife is working at home and my daughter is home. But I'll say that Russell, we put a lot of focus on our employees' mental and physical well-being. So like we're saying, there are people that have to now work and homeschool their kids. And maybe they're living in an apartment and there's not a lot of room and a lot of space. So there's been a lot of focus from the company in making sure that all of the employees, all the associates are doing well mentally and physically, going out and getting some air. There are a lot of check-ins. So I'm proud to say that that's been good. But for me personally, with the exception of a few more people at home, my daily interaction's always been the same. It's been a little bit different. So I'm dealing with my colleagues in HR and compensation and whatnot, and they're working from home. So it's just the question of adjusting to their needs as well, because even though my day-to-day really hasn't changed that much, my interaction with them needs to be flexible to, if there's a dog in the background or if there's a crying kid in the background, we just work through it. So that becomes the new norm.
This is very true. I guess a similar question, but how has your company shifted since having to go virtual? Has any kind of goals or strategies changed with your company or the org that you work for? I guess we'll go back and start with Becca again.
Sure. So I think Erin brought up a really good point in the last conversation about how recruiting is changing right now. As she mentioned, this is generally the time when we would be in the Campion ballroom saying hello and shaking your hand and collecting your resume and all those good things. But of course, here we are in our homes, which, you know, is a pretty big shift and big lift from a recruiting perspective. In some ways it's easier, and in other ways, you know, it's definitely challenging to feel like we're getting an opportunity to really educate candidates and utilize folks from our business that are alum of particular schools that want to be a part of the recruiting process. So there's ways that recruiting looks different, and a lot of businesses and organizations that are impacted in who we're looking to hire and what that a virtual interview will look like and all those things. So here in recruiting, at least in the student program space, we're sort of being looked at as talent advisors on how to best approach interviewing and engaging talent in this way, and then in onboarding folks as well. So, you know, as people this last summer were starting new jobs or internships in a pandemic when we couldn't come in and hand people badges and give them a computer, you know, all the logistics associated with getting people laptops and credentials and all of that, things that I never thought I would have to worry about as a recruiter, as a human resources professional, became a part of my day-to-day. So from a big scale and just sort of the mundane, how do we get the equipment we need to do our work, things are looking different.
Yeah, I think every industry is changed and impacted. So within insurance, everyone thinks, oh, everyone needs insurance. We do, but 2020, we are one of the top insurers for event cancellation insurance. Yes, we had a lot of events canceled. There are the West Coast wildfires, there's flooding, there's hurricanes and tornadoes, and it's our job to be there on people's worst day when these situations arise. So that's kind of impacting, as Becca mentioned, we're the virtual interview process. We were able to pivot all of our internships within a matter of weeks to be fully virtual and didn't have to cancel, which was great. But as we approach this upcoming season, we just probably aren't going to have as much fine detail about what next summer looks like. I've already had folks say, well, is it going to be in person or virtually? If I had a magic 8-ball, y'all know that I would be using it right now because that would be incredible. But I will say, as you're talking to recruiters and companies, just think about that perspective and maybe have a little bit of grace that we're humans too. You know, half the calls I'm on, my dog is on my lap. So we may not have as much information about specific start dates, about if it's going to be virtual or online, and that's different. So we're all in this together, and it'll continue to iron out as time does. And just know every company is going to be communicating openly what we know and in our time frame.
Yeah, our our organizational goals shifted quite a bit as businesses are entering more of are looking to enter the recovery phase. The Chamber provides a lot of opportunities for businesses to usually connect to advocate for themselves at the policy level, both city, state, county. Businesses are now looking to the Chamber and saying, how do we recover? What are we supposed to do? And we don't have those answers. And so I think what we've really shifted to is empowering our employees to be having more of those conversations with our businesses and we're really trusting. I think we were a high trust organization before, but we're really trusting our employees to go out and have those conversations with businesses when they interact with them at events or at policy conversations, and to be reporting that back. And we've really shifted to nobody knows, like Erin said, nobody's got that 8-ball, unfortunately, or 8-ball, and so it's a group effort, and we're asking everyone to contribute what they can when they hear it, and knowing that nobody's going to have the right answer, but that the collective response for the business community to continue to recover and to enter that more of a recovery phase is going to be different for every business and going to require lots of different ideas. And we know that the leadership of our organization can't be responsible for that. It's at every level. So we're really pushing our employees to be thinking in each of their roles, how can they contribute? How can they help us help the business community? And that's been really great to watch our employees really step up into that and step up into leadership roles across the organization, not just in kind of positions of leadership or positional authority. And so really encouraging employees to be telling us what they're hearing and telling us what members are saying and telling us what businesses are struggling with so that we can incorporate that into the solutions and the recovery plan that we're putting together for the entire business community in the Seattle area.
And I would say at Russell Investments, I'll just echo what everyone is saying. We had to shift not only the employees, majority working from home, and we have offices around the country and around the world. So we're working with the health officials and the local officials and all the different offices. And unlike some companies, maybe like the Googles, we don't have a set date when we're targeted to go in. We have plans in place to transition back in, but right now, majority of people are working from home. And in regards to recruiting, we've transitioned. So we no longer do in-person interviews. So we do Skype, Zoom, team meetings. So that's a change. And there's a need to educate the hiring managers, the interviewers on that change. And so that's a change. Our internship program this past summer was, like we were saying, it was virtual. So we had it, and we had a shift into doing that. Our interns are doing work, but there's also a lot of education. There's meetings with leadership and training on LinkedIn and things like that. So we had to shift and be able to provide that and make that all online. But so far so good. It's becoming the new norm. And we're going along that course until the old norm comes back.
Thank you. Okay, so I have one more question I want to ask, and then hopefully we can turn this over to the students to start asking you some questions. So students, if you're starting to think of some questions, please start to enter them in the chat, and we'll then call on you. Otherwise, you can utilize the raise your hand feature, and we'll do our best to call on you that way. But I'm kind of interested in all of your perspective on sort of on the state of the economy and hiring. So kind of, I guess, specifically to your company or just generally speaking, what kind of industries do you think are doing better right now that have maybe seen an increase in business? Or what kind of specific roles are you tending to hire more of than you have in the past?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting, just as a comment, Mitch, you said as we head back to the old norm, and I really don't know what that's going to look like, or if things will be back to normal. I say with air quotes, because I think that this has taught so many organizations how remote work can be effective, and where remote work works. I do think that there's been a lot of learnings that I candidly, you know, from my perspective, I hope continue. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for goodness that has stemmed from this new way of life we're living. That being said, Justin, to answer your question, you know, my opinion is that you know, there are going to continue to be these risks and curveballs that we don't see coming, and finding work that is fulfilling and makes a difference in those spaces is continuing to be challenging. I don't think that there's a bunch of new news there, and I also don't think that anything is recession proof, or you know, proof that there's no way that a pandemic will not disrupt the work. Even here at Amazon, which even as an employee, like, I'm shopping on Amazon more than I ever had. I'm sending groceries to my grandparents, right, through the grocery delivery service, doing all of those things for the first time. We're seeing a shift in who we hire, though we're hiring just as many people, or, you know, right in that same ballpark anyway. We're finding that we need to hire in our operations spaces more, like the folks that are doing the work around delivery and logistics and all of that. That's a growing place where I think 2 years ago, most people would say, like, the tech teams are where the growth is. We need people who can code and do business, or what have you. So I think priorities are shifting some, but ultimately the tech skills and those logistics skills continue to thrive here. And I think that those are the types of solution-oriented, building-minded roles that are going to continue to grow in tech companies. Finding new solutions to old problems is the work that will continue, from my perspective here and at other tech companies in the area.
So I'm actually going to take it from a little bit different perspective, because I think, like Becca was talking about toward the end, the skills that we're looking for are changing a little bit. So yes, we're still hiring a lot for our tech side and for our analytics, but I don't think anybody looks at insurance and is like, technology? Everyone kind of has a question mark, but we have a really great tech program if anyone's interested. But I think the skills that a lot of hiring managers are looking for really are focused around that innovative problem solving, the flexibility component. So oftentimes with internships or full-time, we aren't going to know what those projects are going to look like, or they may change by the time we get to spring 2020. So somebody who's willing to be flexible, adaptable to changing circumstances and takes it in stride. Obviously, with virtual communication has to be a solid across written, verbal, video. it's a weird new thing, but being able to show adaptability and learning that new skill. So while yes, industries and roles have changed, and the COVID has impacted almost every industry, the skills I think are going to continue to adapt to make sure that anybody applying, if you're submitting your resume and application, make sure that you're highlighting not only your technical skills in the skills section, but through your bullet points, demonstrate where you have these key, really transferable skills.
Speaking to that, I think doing some really deep self-reflection on the skills that you have and that come really naturally to you. I think there's this desire to be what a company wants or be what a job wants. And I think putting yourself in the position of applying for roles that are going to highlight your strengths and highlight the skills that you want to continue working on. Because I think it can also be, you know, when especially in a pandemic, you're going to throw your resume out and see where it sticks. And there is something to be said for that. And do your research and find a company that resonates with you from a values standpoint and roles that speak to you from a, you know, what kind of work do you want to be doing and what kind of work are you well positioned to be doing so that you can be successful in that, not just what is any job that, you know, or what are the things that you're supposed to be good at to get this job with this company. And I think especially right now when there are more people in the market who are looking for roles, finding companies and jobs and specific roles that speak to your strengths, right? There's the adage that you can get further with the same amount of work working on skills that you're good at rather than trying to build up skills that you're not good at. So focus on your strengths. And the Chamber, we're a small nonprofit, so we don't do a ton of hiring. So I can't speak to the huge breadth. I think that the recruiters can speak to more specifically, but something that our business members are really saying is they want folks who have a passion for the business that they're running. And so finding a way to really look at yourself and what you value and finding companies that you can match and that you want to work for is going to help you then find roles and be able to speak more specifically to the value that you specifically bring rather than trying to fit into a box of a role or a company that you think you should be applying to or that you know might be that is hiring a lot, I think, too. So that would be my slightly different take, but a little, you know, on the same thread.
I would echo that too. So I don't think for our internships or even our entry level roles, what we look for to change that much. Is probably more focused on communications, but what we look for is what's going to separate. It's been and probably is even more of a competitive market. So in the internship program, we look for people with a skill set, but also that's going to be a cultural fit. So it's people that are collegial and collaborative, but the people that rise to the top are those that can show that they have a passion, that they've researched, that they're not just looking for a job, that they're looking for, in my case, my industry. That they're just not putting out a feeler, that they're really committed, that they have the passion, that they're a go-getter. There are a lot of people out there that are being graduated that are smart, but how do you separate yourself from the rest? And that's, if you're lucky enough to have an internship and you're going for your first full-time role, that sometimes is enough to separate. But really, it's someone who can articulate why they want it, show that passion, definitely show that your research, especially in a company like Russell Investments. I mean, we're well known, but I don't think people know us as well as, say, Fidelities of the world, or pick another company, or the Amazons. So every blue moon, I'll talk to someone, and they won't really know what we do. And we have a complicated business model, and that's not, you don't have to be an expert, but you have to show that you're researched, that you show that you've put some time and effort into the role, because why would I want to consider you if you're not committed to it? So I think that's an important piece. But in terms of the skill sets and whatnot, we tend to hire in our internships and entry-level roles, in our investment groups, on our operations teams, sometimes marketing, sometimes IT. So there are some basic skill sets, quantitative skill sets, whatnot, but The rest of it is we know that these are junior entry level roles, so we're not expecting you to have a mastery of it, but you have to have the skills and the foundations, the fundamentals to be able to be taught and want to learn and want to contribute.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, I would love to turn it over to the students if you have any questions. So I guess we can take a few seconds to see if anybody does have some questions they would like to ask our panel.
Hi guys, my name is Lai Chan. I am a graduate student in the MBA program at Seattle University. I don't really have a specific question. I just want to thank the panel for you guys' insight. I really appreciate the comment about the strengths and basically the fit and the culture fit, right? Because for me, it's not only if the company or if I fit the company, it's both, right? It's a relationship. So for me to do well, I have to be wanting to be there, just like the company wants me to be there, right? So I appreciate the insight so far. That's all. Just a comment.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Anybody else have some questions they want to ask?
I have a question about like kind of an untraditional candidate. I've been working in the profit area for the past 10 years, but I'm not really trying to work for nonprofits anymore. I would much rather work for a private company. And I'm just wondering what kind of skills we can highlight that we've developed in the nonprofits sector that apply to your private sector companies.
So I can actually take this because prior to joining Liberty, I had exclusively worked in the nonprofit and education sector. So totally with you. Really, it's all about crafting your story and finding your thread of skills or the commonality to the job that you're going to apply to in the corporate setting. For me, I'm a mission-driven employee. So much like you were saying, Lay, much like you were saying, Mitch, I really looked into the company because if I'm going to be spending my time there, I want to make sure that it's an organization that aligns with my values and beliefs and that they enact on their espoused mission. So my recommendation, Jesse, is really, as Jane was mentioning earlier, think about the skills that come naturally to you. So one of my natural skills, I'm highly organized. My pantry is like weirdly organized. Even before The Home Edit came on Netflix or Marie Kondo, I had all my shirts folded. That's just something that I enjoy and comes naturally to me. So finding jobs that were in alignment, as well as that were in alignment with my prior career interests, and that is going to help you as a stepping stone. I don't think in looking at resumes of any of us are saying, oh, nonprofit, no thank you. Because we recognize how oftentimes in nonprofit or smaller organizations, you wear multiple hats. It's really just tailoring your resume. And I'm going to say that for everyone on the call, you have to tailor your resume for every job you apply to. It takes extra time. Yes, I know it. But as recruiters, we can tell if you spend the effort, I guarantee it is going to pay off. If you really spend the effort, I'm not guaranteeing you a job or anything, but I'm going to say you're going to make a greater impact and be able to clearly tell your story every time. So think about the skills, read the job description, and highlight specific examples from each role that could play to those skill sets.
I'll agree with that. I think it's important. A resume to me just highlights your candidacy. So like Aaron's saying, you should just highlight those accomplishments that lend itself to that specific role. So we all have a lot of different experiences, but your resume is not your bio. It's really just the document to sell you, to get you in the door, to make me as the recruiter interested to want to call you and talk further. So understand the role you're applying to, the requirements, and two things. One, on your resume, highlight those things, those accomplishments that you think are relevant, but also be ready when you get the interview, when you get me on the phone, to be able to tell me, to articulate why coming from a nonprofit that maybe you would be a fit at an asset manager. I personally, I stay open-minded. I think there are benefits to a diverse experience, but you can't rely on me to make those, connect those dots. If you want to have a better shot at moving forward, you need to do the work. So the danger is you need to make sure you have pretty strong version control. So if you're tailoring your resume to a certain job, one in marketing and another one in ops, make sure you're sending out the appropriate resume to the appropriate person. I agree. I think you can have different versions of it. I would be surprised if someone has 10 different versions and can go after 10 unrelated jobs, but definitely more than one or two, because I think we all can bring something different, and especially at the more junior levels when it's not such a niche role where there requires years of experience in something. There's more leeway there.
I know we have more questions and I don't want to pile on, but I will say my degree is in nonprofit leadership. So I did it. It's possible. It sounds like Erin did it too. I think Jesse and others who are thinking, man, I really want to change a career or do something different. Don't sell yourself short. Like, we're all looking for mission-driven employees. We're looking for people who care about their work and are excited about opportunities. That's what distinguishes a good interview from a great interview, is somebody who wants the job, as basic as that sounds. So Jesse, if you're interested and you want to transfer and you take these tips related to your resume, you will find a home. And I say that to everyone.
Thanks. Jane, did you have anything to add there? Or we can go to the next question. And
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I could not say it any better than my three fellow panelists already have. So
cool. Hey, Megan, do you know who was next on the questions? It looks like there was a couple in the chat.
Yep. So let me find it here. Angel, if you want to ask in person, you're welcome to, or I can as well, if you want to just jump in or unmute yourself.
I just wanted to ask, what's the percent of job openings that are available for new grads or people with just a few years of work experience, like 1 or 2, the percentage compared to those that have more experience?
I guess I'll start. I'm not sure the exact answer. I can tell you right now, typically during the fourth quarter of the year, hiring slows down a little bit. It picks up again February, March time. It's not an exact science because we always have openings for different reasons. But I think in general, things probably because of the pandemic, things have slowed a little bit. But I can tell you, as the recruiter here, I'm very busy. But I think there's been a little bit more focus on the roles that are more critical, and that doesn't mean necessarily the senior roles. I've worked on a number of entry-level roles as well, just probably not as many given the time of year, but also as many given the pandemic.
In some sites, Angel, you'll be able to filter by either campus or early experience. So instead of thinking about a percentage, I recommend, if that's a category, just dive right into those entry-level talent or campus-specific roles, because that'll help narrow your search and make you a more qualified candidate than putting your role in for a senior level 10+ years.
And I think it's probably true for all of us. I often say, if someone's not sure, just interested, go to our career sites. At Russell, I'm sure it's true for everyone. Our open opportunities are always posted on our career site. And in fact, that's where I would recommend you go if you find something, because we want you to apply to be formally considered. So that's true for our internships, which will probably be posted for the next summer. We posted December, January timeframe is my guess. And then again, keep an eye out on our career site periodically, because we're always adding new opportunities. Even if it slows down a little bit next couple of months, there's always something there, and then it's due to pick up as well.
And just one note, timing is different across all of our organizations. So we're actually hiring now for summer 2020, and I've already extended offers for September 2021. So things are just all wild. So it's never too early to start checking out job boards, but also don't be discouraged. So if you see, oh, it's not posted anymore, we continue to post.
Thank you.
Justin, I think Maria was next. Maria, if you want to unmute, or I can ask for you. Maria Blocker.
Oh, yeah. Hi, panelists. So my question is, COVID has impacted a lot of ways that you can gain new experiences, like events, or networking, or just maybe like outside extracurricular, I guess, like skill building activities that you can do. So I guess, do you guys have any recommendations on how students can continue to gain new experiences and build skills in the COVID era that will help further our growth and our narrative as a candidate?
I mean, I don't want to, yeah, go ahead, Jane. I was going to say, I don't want to talk too much, so take it away, Jane.
That's why we're here, is to talk. No. So one of the things that I can't stress enough and did before COVID, and I think is especially true, is mentorship, and finding a mentor to help chat through even what those skills you can be building and ways to do that that are effective for you personally and for an industry that maybe you're trying to get into. I know the Albers program has a really excellent mentor program that I graduated with my MBA from Albers, and the mentor program was probably the single most impactful part of that process and of getting my MBA. I still connect with my mentor. She still to this day tells me of ways to grow skills and things that I can continue to do. And I think it's hard to do that on a wide scale basis of telling this whole group what you guys can do, but finding somebody who you trust and respect and look up to, and whose kind of professional path is one that you admire. I think even more in COVID, I've had more requests for mentorship since COVID because people are trying to find more human connection, and it's easier to meet because we can just jump on a quick call than having to navigate schedules and meet in person. And those are questions that once somebody gets to know you a bit and they know the industry or the role that you're trying to get into, they can kind of tailor that. And I would say make as many connections as you can, even if it's with a mentor that is maybe a peer level of somebody who you really respect, who has, a skill set that you admire, and just really try to make as many human connections and build your network as much as possible, so that if a job comes open and somebody thinks of you because they know of your skill, that's how you can start just getting yourself more immersed in the business community in general, is just start building your network and building those skills of how can you get people thinking of you, and how can you think of other people for roles too, and leveraging your network in both directions is something that I would really stress, especially now during COVID.
And what I would say is I agree with all of that, but also say if there's time, and depending on the career you're looking for, so you said you have your MBA, I like to see people who, depending on the role, are going after their CFA or their CPA. So I think it's easier if you're stay at home to do classes online. So that would be, if it fits with your career goals, getting another degree or certification, or workshop, or any of these things that when I see someone making an effort and not just treading water, waiting or trying, when they're taking the time, when they have the time to advance themselves in some way, it includes networking and getting a mentorship for sure. But then also, if I see someone who's saying, oh, I'm studying for my my CFA level 1. So that's the entry level, that's the beginning. That still helps, in my mind, separates another candidate that maybe is just finishing school, maybe he's finished school and is looking for the first job, but it's doing nothing. So sometimes it's hard to say, but all else being equal, if someone is advancing themselves that way, that's enough to bring them to the top of the pile.
And another couple comments on ways to replace what maybe was networking or clubs or volunteering or whatever. I know a lot of organizations on a smaller level are struggling with that, figuring out ways to like have networking happen when we're not meeting in person and, you know, chatting over coffee or what have you. But there are, you know, a lot of like shared experiences in that between me as a recruiter and you as a student. So if we can talk about ways that you've overcome that, if you set up a coffee chat, somebody that I met this summer as an intern here at Amazon, figured out like a chat roulette type situation, just like this master, like you put in your name for a time and it just randomly matched you with another intern at Amazon, and they did it like every Friday morning. They figured that out, and that was an incredible experience that they were able to talk about outside of their job. They did that. So there's ways to like really innovate and do something different and cool, and we're looking for students to bring that to the table and talk about that on their resumes. But also national organizations have figured it out. So from a human resources perspective, I'm a part of SHRM, SHRM, which is a national organization that supports professionals in human resources, and they're still doing virtual events and networking and giving folks opportunity to learn and expand their careers. From a student perspective, we just wrapped up a big conversation with the National Association of Black Accountants, so NABA. Grace Hopper is still happening, the big Women in Computing Conference. So all of these big events and organizations that are national are happening on a different stage. And as a student, you can join those for free or cheap, which is not true when you're 15 years out from college like us, or me, I should say. I mean, I won't speak for everybody. It gets expensive. So it's a cool thing to take advantage of while you're a student. And I really recommend like that. Expands your network, gives you opportunities to learn new things, and is a really great resume builder to show that you're not only academically interested in accounting or what have you, but that extracurricularly you've taken the time to invest and build your network and skills in that space.
The last thing I'll add is don't discount your experience with student organizations, right? Like these are all free things that I'll be talking about because I paid for my own undergrad education, and I know that sometimes that really is tight. So student organizations, think about how you could reach out to employers, set up something like this type of event, work with the Career Center, right? Collaboration skills, communication, all those good things. Utilize free online libraries like Khan Academy, lynda.com. I think if you have a Seattle Public Library card, you get free Khan Academy or LinkedIn Learning, something like that. And while like Becca was mentioning, some conferences can either be free or cheap. But also, if you're curious and want to learn something a little bit outside of your discipline, it's okay to take courses on mindfulness, growth mindset. We want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself too, because this is a weird time that we're all living in. So really, I would say breathe a little bit too. Don't feel like it's now or never. There will be jobs. It will figure itself out. So do a little bit of that self-care, because as employers, we want to make sure that in stressful times, you have those tools. So even if you're taking a mindfulness class and you can talk to that, or you get, a certificate of completion, that's good too, right? Jesuit learning is all about that cure personalis, care of the person, your holistic self. So we want y'all to come into the workforce ready to meet challenges, and whether that's care or direct career stuff. I just had to say that. Take care of yourselves. This is a weird time.
Right, and I'd say, all that's really important, because it's showing that you're doing something. You're not staying stationary. I'm trying to, as a recruiter, I try to filter out the fluff. So if someone's just a resume builder, that's different. But if you really are passionate about something, if you're into cooking and you really are, and you take cooking classes, which doesn't necessarily relate to a job in operations, but I see that, I put that in the plus column because that shows me that someone has a passion, is falling on that passion and committed to it. And we want someone who's passionate, who's engaged, who's a go-getter. Those are all those soft qualities that are as important, if sometimes not more important, than the specific skill sets.
Well, thank you. That was all some really good advice. I think we have a question coming up, and I apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name, but Yasena, did you have a question on career planning, it sounds like?
Hi, yeah, I did. So my question is basically, as we get closer to graduation, if recruiters would recommend like reaching out to them on LinkedIn and maybe like working one-on-one with them on just getting some interview tips, also if some resume help, and then just making sure that your application gets pretty much to the top of the list. Like, what would you suggest we do?
I think one place to start is definitely your career center. That's I think a valuable resource because that's their job in part, and they can give pointers, and they have resume books, and there should be a career advisor there. And then sure, back to what we were talking about before, LinkedIn is great. I use LinkedIn as one of my main tools when I'm looking to network and find candidates and whatnot. So I'm always looking to grow my connections. I'm almost maxed out, quite frankly. I think I'm getting close to 30,000. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's important, like we're saying, to find a mentor in some regard, someone that you can talk to. Having said that, I try to respond as much as I can, but I'm also not a career counselor. I'm not a career coach. My job is to find the most qualified, diverse talent for Russell Investments, but I also try to provide advice when I can, but I just can't answer. I can't, if someone unknown to me sends me a resume and say, would you please, hi, I'm so-and-so, would you please critique my resume? Not sure if I'm going to be able to do that, if I even have the time to do that. That's where coming in and building a relationship with someone can probably be to your advantage.
So smaller forums like this, you are going to have more luck than just blindly reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn. I would agree with Mitch, go to the Career Center for a resume review. But if you want to reach out to any of us or other folks and say, hey, just a heads up, I've applied for XYZ role, here's the job reference number, in case you want to give my resume a look. Sometimes it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. Every recruiter is probably going to be on LinkedIn more or less than others. And that's the sad reality. Sometimes you're going to hear back right away. Other times you might not hear back, and that's okay. But putting yourself out there and asking the question today, that's really great. So keep doing it. Get your resume and cover letter critiqued by the center. I always recommend applying and then shooting an email saying, I've applied, check it out, because that is probably the best way rather than having them see your draft version. We want you to see the polished version.
Yeah, I echo Mitch and Aaron. Use your network. This Albers mentoring network, I didn't take advantage of as a student, but sounds amazing. I wish I had. But also Seattle U alum in general, I think, are a great resource. Saying, hey, I'm a student at Seattle U. I'm more likely to accept a blind invite from a Seattle U student than I am from a student at some other school, I will say. I studied the same thing as you, or I'm really interested in a role similar to yours at your company. I think recruiters are obviously an important part of the puzzle. I think we would all agree that this is part of the gig is getting a resume past a recruiter, but the people who are really going to be able to help you create content and career plan, to your point, Yesenia, like think about, where do I start if my goal is the VP of marketing at a tech company or whatever. Those are going to be practitioners. Those are going to be people who are in marketing, not a recruiter. So using the networking that Seattle U provides and those types of resources, in addition to connections like this one, as far as listening to recruiters and hearing about our side of this piece, would be the best advice I can provide.
I think it is. It's a valuable. So if your alumni network or your career services are there, and you're interested in company X, then they should be able to help you find maybe someone who's been at that company, and you can then use your college connection, your college, mutual connection to, to make that introduction, to have the conversation. So again, I went to a small school, Amherst College on the East Coast, and so I too, when I get an invite or a request from either someone who's still in school or someone just out of school, I'm more likely to reach out or to respond and have a conversation. I did it too even before I was a recruiter. When I was working at a company, if I got someone that said, oh, I'm about to interview at your company, you have a few minutes, you can tell me about the culture, or tell me about, do you know the hiring manager or anything like that, I'm probably much more willing and able to help out in that regard. So that you should take advantage of your connections on LinkedIn, your connections at school, your networking. See who you know or who you have a connection with at that company that can maybe provide some more insight, because that will only make you more prepared at the interview and make you a stronger candidate.
Great, thank you. And I want to be respectful with our panel's time, and we are at 1:30. So I just wanted to say thank you very much to our panel. You provided some awesome advice for our students. And I just wanted to mention, we do have some upcoming events. This Friday, we have our mentor fair. So as Jane was mentioning, this is an awesome opportunity to meet some of our mentors if you're a senior or grad student. Next week, if you want to take some of our panel's advice and really get in and start tailoring your resume, we have a resume workshop on October 1st. And then on October 8th, we have our virtual career fair for our business engineering students, which will be another awesome opportunity to connect with a lot of these companies that are on this workshop today. So that being said, thank you very much to our panel, and thank you, students, for joining us. And hopefully we will see all of you at one of our upcoming events.
Awesome. Thank you all for your time.